What up guys, Dreadshells here, and welcome back to World of Tanks. Today we're going to be looking at an Ace Taker game that I had in the EBR 75 FL10. This is the new Tier 8 premium wheeled armored vehicle for the French light tank line. And I'm just going to go through the game first. A lot of you guys have been asking me for my opinion on the new light tank line for the French wheeled armored vehicles, and my opinions on how to play them, how to counter them, where to go on maps with them, and all that jazz. So I will talk about that at the end of the video, my overall impressions of them and their state in the game. But I'm just going to start the battle here, and we'll talk about that first. So let's get started. So the first thing you need to know about the wheeled vehicles here is that they got two different driving modes. That I believe the default hotkey to switch between them is X. So X gives you boost or turbo mode, which makes you go significantly faster. When you're out of turbo boost mode, you don't go as fast, but you can turn a lot sharper. So this is the first thing I'd recommend in learning how to do if you're new to this light tank line, is learn how to shift in and out of these modes very quickly, because it'll help you stay alive. So the enemy EBR got there early as well, here in the middle coal dune area here on the east side of Pilsen. And like I said in a previous Pilsen video, I don't really like scouting the zero line because the soft cover in bushes is so dense. We had to avoid a ram there. You got to be careful when you're playing against other wheeled vehicles. People play these tanks really aggressively just because they're so fast and that their view range is so bad that they're kind of forced to get really close and be really aggressive. So I've been rammed more than once by one of these things, so try not to take damage from these guys if you can avoid it. So normally I would be able to spot any tanks there that are sitting up there in the sniper ridge from these dunes back here, but because my view range is so poor, that I have to move up closer, right? And what you saw me there initially when I just spotted the AMX 105 and the 8 Panther is that I quickly shifted between driving modes so I could turn really sharply and get back into cover between one of the dune modes. And this here is me not being used to the overall speed of these tanks yet. I was going so fast that I overcommitted and I went way further over the top of the dune than I was anticipating that I was, and I didn't turn in time. So basically that's me getting really, really lucky. So yeah, these things are a lot of fun to drive. They're very difficult to drive as well. You need to... The main technique that I think will help you guys out a lot is knowing when your turns are coming up ahead of time, and shift out of turbo mode just for a couple seconds so you can turn quickly and then go back into turbo mode. This is what I've been trying to do. So I did it pretty poorly there. I lost all my speed when I was doing my cross here, and anyone over there would have a really, really easy shot on me if they had a better reaction time. So that was kind of a poor move on my part. But I'm trying to respot this Leo over and over again so my team can kill him. Interestingly, if you guys aren't familiar with the zero line on Pilsen here, first of all, I don't really like scouting this from the zero line itself, because as you can see, there's a ton of bushes here that have heavy camo rating. So it's very difficult to spot enemies that are sitting in these bushes before you get into proxy range. And also there's a hard point of cover here, this crane that people like to use here on the line, so... Excuse me. And I decided just to go for it and get him killed here. I loaded high explosive because this tank has really, really good high explosive shells. Let's see, 75 penetration with 260 damage. It's a 2-shot autoloader. I keep the high explosive loaded because I know that there was a light tank up here. And I deciding here that I really need to push the tempo of the game, right? Because we're losing over here in the west. If you look on the mini map on the 1, 2, 3 lines, we're losing this side of the map quite badly. So if we're going to win this game, we need to win this side of the map at the least to even it out and to give us a chance. So that's why I pushed so aggressively up onto the sniper ridge. So we get the Leo taken out, the T-71 taken out, the AMX 105. I did quite a bit of damage to the rear of the tank with the high explosive as well, and we got some support there from our T-71 buddy. Or, excuse me, not T-71 buddy, EBR Hotch. I don't even know what tank I see. Unfortunately get caught in the middle of a reload here, so I'm not able to shoot this Crusader SP immediately. But we get him taken out, and now there's a 50-50 map control here. The enemy controls the west and the backside of our cap. We control the east and the backside of their cap. And right now I'm just going to see if I can get any shots across through these doorway gaps in the middle factory area. Some poor map knowledge here for knowing which doorway I need to use here. Random STG appears there, drives across the gap there. Luckily, the Tiger 1 was low health, and we're able to take his gun out of the fight. And same with the STG. The reload for this 2-shot autoloader is pretty short. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I don't remember the exact statistics. I think it's like 9-10 seconds, something like that. So I don't remember exactly. I'll have to look that up after the game. But when you're in this kind of scenario in a game, you always want to be trying to eliminate enemy guns as soon as possible. I was about to go for the enemy Lorraine already here, and the fact that our EBR Hotch over here is started capping, right? So the enemy 430s and Tiger 1 here are coming back to defend their cap. So with the timing of that, I wasn't able to... he showed up and just as I was about to cross to go try and kill the Arties, right? So I can't commit up onto that hill to kill the Artie because they'll just crossfire me and kill me, right? So I'm relocating over here to try and get behind them to see if I can get any shots over here. This tank is ridiculously fast, by the way, and the same with the higher tier French wheeled armored vehicles. I could have stopped there potentially to take a shot, but I was really nervous that this 430 was paying attention to how I was looping around the map, and I didn't want to give him a free shot. One of the other downsides to these tanks, besides their really bad view range or low view range, is the fact that they don't have very many hit points for their tier. So it doesn't take you to get shot very many times before you're dead. So really bad for me to stop there. He was only 260 meters, so he could easily spot me. Generally, the time that you get spotted in these vehicles is probably around 280 to 300 meters, if you're not firing, that is. Unless you're facing vehicles with better view range, and then you're probably going to be getting spotted around 325 meters. This is part of the problem, I think, that with this light tank. They need to buff its view range a little bit, and in my opinion, reduce its speed just a little bit. But right now, we're just using the amazing mobility of this tank to keep locating around the map and keep dancing around the enemy's movements, right? We're wanting to stay on the edge of their formation, right? So if they move, then we relocate as well. We're always searching for side shots and rear shots here because I don't really have good penetration to engage them frontally. So now that they kind of retreated back onto this corner here, now it's safe for me to go kill Artie. I could have loaded high explosive here, and it would have been a guaranteed kill. The alpha with the APCR is 175, so basically it was a roll of the dice, 50-50 and RNG with my damage rolls to if I was going to kill him with one clip or not. I could have loaded high explosive, and if I had just aimed my shots carefully, I could have easily killed him. But of course, now that we got spotted up here, I'm staying up here to see if the enemy's going to counter my positioning here and come engage me. And then I decide that because my teammates over here are so low health, the PTA and the EBR, I don't want to. I don't feel like we have the HP to stand our ground and engage the enemy as they push into us. If they push into us, so I decided that I don't want to get trapped in that corner, right? So you never want to get trapped in any light tank. And the key to staying alive in these tanks is always keep moving. For the most part, you can use soft cover, but generally that's only starts to getting more and more useful in the middle and late game with these particular vehicles. The normal scout tanks will outspot you really easily because they have more or less as good or only slightly worse camo rating than you do. And they have way better view range than you, so if there's any normal enemy scouts alive, just keep in mind that you're easily outspotted. So we get behind the Tiger 2 there. I don't engage him right away. I probably could have if I had stopped around A6 area. Some really bad timing there. The 430 was crossing just as before I got into the bush there, and he spotted me before I was in soft cover. But because of the intelligence that we're giving our team, whoa, almost took a nosedive there. I left out of my driving mode to try to make a sharp turn there, but I didn't do it soon enough, and yeah. Another thing that you need to know about these wheeled vehicles is the Wargaming have changed the physics about them in the sense of the damage that you take from hard landings. The 430 gets an amazing snapshot off. Getting that second shot from the other 430 is expected. He was probably stationary and aimed in. But unfortunately, we take a lot of damage there from these two tanks. And now I'm a one-shot, right? So I talked about earlier about how these tanks don't have very many hit points. I would probably be a one-shot anyway if I was driving any other light tank. If I got shot by two 430s, but yeah. So now I'm trying to actually I'm going to try and use the turbo mode of this tank to try and get into these bushes safely. I want to spot the cap, right? But because of how the line of sight works with these bushes in our own sniper area, it's kind of tricky to do that. So right now I don't have any soft cover in between me and whoever's in cap. So now I got him spotted and I reversed, so I got the bush covering me and giving me safety to fire from stealth. Now, always assume that when you're shooting from stealth through a bush, behind a bush, that enemy tanks will blind fire you. I think this has a lot to do with the indicator directional fire rating in-game, and I wish Wargaming would change it so it's not so specific. And make it so easy for people to blind fire. It should give you the general direction where enemy tanks are shooting at you, but it shouldn't be that specific. Anyway, unfortunately, the enemy 430 takes out our Leopard PTA, and now we're in a 1v1 with the enemy 430. And the reason that I'm leaving now is because from judging how they have played, get some airtime here. Judging from how they played earlier in the game, they are more or less fairly aggressive in their positioning. So I'm assuming that he's going to come straight at me, or at least whoa. It's really easy to crash these things if you don't watch where you're going. So kind of pressed for time here. We only got closing in on a minute and a half left. So. The good thing about these tanks is that they're so fast that you can relocate and loop around the map in an end-game scenario like this and come up from an enemy from a direction that they're not expecting. So yeah, like I was saying, because of how he was playing, I was assuming that he was going to come straight at me here. So I decided that I would loop around and change my direction here. And there he is. The ridgeline blocks our shot momentarily there, but we're able to lock onto him with the auto aim. Probably a really bad idea. I probably should have aimed that manually. I run the risk of the shot going high and bouncing into his turret. That's always the risk that you take when you're shooting at a tank with auto aim who has their side hull towards you, but their turret is facing you. These tanks, the wheeled armor vehicles, are really fast though, so I still haven't gotten used to aiming manually, going that fast across angles. So I kind of relied on the auto aim there to not let me down. And luckily it didn't. The shot went low enough and it hit the side of the hull and didn't hit the turret. So my initial impressions of these wheeled vehicles, I have mixed impressions of them. I think to play them, positives about them: they're unique. They're something new to the game. They're really fast. They have poor view range. This is a negative in my opinion. They have very unique guns. This is the premium vehicle, and it has a two-shot autoloader. Excuse me. I don't believe any of the normal wheeled vehicles have an autoloader. If any of you guys know contrary to that, let me know in the comments. I might be incorrect about that. I haven't really researched the specifics of the tech tree yet. I believe they're all one-shot guns. But the guns are pretty competitive, so this is a positive. One of the... Excuse me. Starting to fight off a cold here, so my apologies. One of the main attributes of the guns of these tanks is that they have really good high explosive. As far as penetration and shell velocity, their high explosive goes almost as fast, or I think as fast, as the normal APCR or AP rounds in these tanks. So I'll have to look that up as well. I might be incorrect. Kind of thinking over the top of my head on all these stats, guys. Sorry. But the high explosive shell velocity isn't as slow as other tanks, is basically what I'm saying. So it's easier to lead shots on moving targets, aka other scout tanks. And this is why I'm kind of calling these tanks, they're more anti-scouts, and definitely in the early game and the beginning of a middle part of a battle, because when the enemy scouts are still alive, is because these tanks are so fast that they can get in a position to counter an enemy scout's positioning before the enemy scout is there, right? So they can get the first shot off. They're not an anti-scout in the sense of their view range. Enemy scouts can outspot them in the open, for example. The map meta doesn't allow that for a decent number of the maps. I would say about a third of the maps a lot of the time are open enough to where that scenario will happen, where you will get outspotted by enemy scouts in an open field scenario. The other thing I think that makes these more of an anti-scout instead of a true scout is because they are really, really fast and they have poor view range. So this forces people to drive much further into a map to get vision on the enemy team than a traditional scout would, which means that you are much more likely to encounter an enemy scout in their spotting location by proxy, just by default, right? Just because of the nature of the statistics of this tank. So I would, to play this tank, definitely early battle, you need to take shots of opportunity, get early positioning. These tanks can get into some really interesting positions early because they're speed and mobility that traditional scouts can't. But I would focus on trying to take out enemy scouts as best you can early in a battle with your really good high explosive. Other positive attributes of these tanks, the driving mode. I actually, this is the most favorite part of the mechanic of these tanks that I'm enjoying so far. The entering and leaving the turbo mode, or whatever it's called, whatever Wargaming is calling it. I like the challenge of knowing when I should be turning sharply to avoid enemy fire, or just to maneuver correctly around tight areas and then re-engaging the turbo mode so I can accelerate quickly again. Learning how to shift, basically. So any of you guys that drive stick shift out there will probably love this tank. Um, Downsides to this tank overall. As far as statistics is concerned, we've already talked about its poor view range and low hit points. So it doesn't have very good survivability in the fact of actually when you're getting hit. I think the thing that will keep you alive in playing this tank is to always be moving in general. The fewer and fewer enemy tanks that are alive, the more you can stop every now and again in certain soft cover or aim your shots a little bit more. But the main thing that will keep you alive is staying mobile, turning a lot, so making it hard for enemies to hit you. Um, and as far as overall impressions of these vehicles in the game, I like that Wargaming have introduced something new and unique to the game. Personally, I don't like that it's to this extreme. I think these vehicles are breaking the meta of the game, and what I mean by that is they're breaking the progression of positioning in the game, and I don't mean that just for scouts. I mean that for any tank, like for mediums, heavies, tank destroyers. We don't really care about arty. These tanks are really good to counter arty, by the way. You're really fast, you can zoom in behind enemy lines, has really good explosive, so you can take out artillery really quickly. But back to my point. I think these tanks are... It's good that there's an element in the game, whenever a new element that is introduced that changes things up a bit, switches, and forces people to play it a little bit differently. But in my opinion, I think these tanks are they're breaking the meta in the sense that people aren't able to play their tanks to their strengths just from pure speed. These tanks, these wheeled vehicles, will zoom and be in and out of almost in the front of your spawn in the first 20 seconds or so of a game. So, and it's very difficult to get into positions where you're going to be fighting in your traditional area without getting wrecked in the process, because these guys are so aggressive. You will find that a lot of people that play these tanks play them really, really aggressively just because of their short view range and extreme speed, because they're kind of forced to. Some people do it just because they have fun and driving so fast. Other people do it because they're forced to because of the bad view range, or a combination of the two. And so you find that it's very difficult, especially when you're playing traditional scouts, to play the normal vision role for your team early in a game if there's these wheeled vehicles on the enemy team. And you have to play it more conservatively until these tanks are dead on the enemy team, because these wheeled vehicles will get you spotted early in a game just because of how fast they are. They will catch you out in the open before you're in position. I think these tanks are a little too fast. I'd like to see Wargaming nerf them, not a lot, because you want to keep them unique, right? But I would nerf them maybe 5 to 7 kilometers speed, maybe 5 kilometers speed, and I would buff their view range 5 to 10 meters, and that would help for the base view range. That is, I think that a lot of you guys have been asking me about how we need to counter these light tanks, these armored vehicles. As far as shooting them and killing them, just be a little bit more conservative in your positioning, especially if you're in a scout, but whatever tank you're playing, it doesn't matter. Be a little bit more conservative in your positioning. Take a little bit safer approach lines than you normally would wherever you're going. If you're in a heavy and you're going from your spawn to a traditional close range fighting area, take a safer line of approach if you have to cross into the open, for example, because these guys will get you spotted. Just little things like that. And as far as engaging these guys, a lot of you might have difficulty in hitting these guys because they're so fast. I've noticed that a technique that I'm using when I'm engaging these guys is don't take the first shot that you always take the first shot when they're exposed, right? These whoever's playing these wheeled vehicles will make a mistake driving sooner rather than later as far as their angle that they're driving to you or away from you, or if they bump into something. Personally, you'll see that they'll do a lot of zigzagging, right? These tanks go a lot of zigzagging back and forth on the battlefield. And so you're like, oh, these things are so hard to hit. Personally, I wait until they're at the apex of their zig, right? So when they're driving across your tank like this and they're about to turn and go back this way, when they reach the curve and their turning point, this is when it's an easier point to hit them, right? So I wait for them to start turning, and then their tank isn't traversing across my gun so fast, and it makes it easier for it to hit them. And the shell velocity of your of the time that you fire to the time it takes the shell to get to them isn't as affected badly as when they're driving straight across your gun. So that's a technique that I would recommend when engaging these guys. As far as playing mediums and other scout tanks engaging these guys, just like when I was talking about heavies, just position yourself more conservatively, especially on open maps, until you know at least where the enemy wheeled vehicles are, and kind of wait to do your normal spotting roll until you know that these guys are dead. So yeah, those are my initial impressions of at least the Tier 8 Premium wheeled vehicle, the EBR 75 FL10. I have not progressed up the normal wheeled vehicle line very far yet, so stay in tune for that. I think that hopefully in the future Wargaming will adjust to attributes of these tanks so it's not more extreme. But yeah, so my initial impressions of this tank, its strengths and weaknesses, and is it good for the game or not? Is it fun or not? My impressions are mixed. So I think it's good and bad in different ways. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. Sorry about the ramble at the end. I hope you guys enjoy playing these wheeled vehicles and driving them as much as I do. Have fun out there. Happy hunting, and take care.